This semester has been truly enlightening. I've learned how to use technology in ways I never before thought possible. One change that has modified and augmented my classroom is learning how to use Screencast-O-Matic, which has allowed me to put lessons onto my screen and on Google Classroom for my students to look at outside of class. What you see here is a recording that I made for my students so that they would learn how to format their papers in MLA on Google Docs. Before, I would spend a lot of class time doing this, but now I don't have to. Another example of how I flipped my classroom is with my freshmen. I showed them Motif. I found a video, I found a website, and then I was able to put their assignment on Google Classroom all together. The third thing is the current event, which is pretty amazing, and I'll have to share that with you now. This is one of my favorite assignments that my English 1 class did. We used LiveBinder to link to a news source. Students were allowed to watch videos or read articles of their choosing, which is great for differentiation. Then the students, using Classroom, opened up a current event document that had them answer questions about the informational text or the current event. And then this is what it looks like. So then on Google Docs, I would go in and write comments or just simply great at using the suggesting tool. So just briefly, I will show you one of my students, her work. LiveBinder also showed them how to document their sources, which was nice for them to do. They need to learn that for English. So just to pick one, this is one of my students who chose to do a headline or a story about eating vegetables. And you can see that she wrote quite a bit. And then what else is nice is then I have a different student who was interested in something completely different, and he got to pick the article that he was interested in. I can copy the link right into the internet if I need to look up the article, but they were so excited about picking their own that for the most part, while they worked on it, or to start, I had them work on it in class. And so they would call me over, come look at this, this is crazy. And so I really knew their articles before I even started grading their work because they were so excited about being able to pick what they were going to research or look at and report on that I didn't have to go back and look. So this was a fantastic exercise for my students, and I was very pleased with these little English 1 freshmen, thanks to LiveBinder and Google Docs. This assignment, not only was it differentiated, but the students were able to look at sources that I knew were reliable. I knew that they wouldn't be taken to something that maybe was inappropriate. Of course, using the school computers helps that because the firewall would prevent anything from getting through. But the ones that I was able to put into LiveBinder, they had no problem accessing their resources and then learning something interesting. And some of them even went beyond the article and looked at several different articles before choosing the one that they wrote about, which I think is an important skill for them to have as well. My learning from this class has transformed my teaching on other levels too. For example, I want to share with you something that I did last year. You can see the date here. This is my Google Classroom from May 20th. If you look, all I did is I put a review and then an example paper online for students to click and open, which this is okay, but as you can see, this is just substituting technology. This is not
really building my curriculum or changing my pedagogy. Now this year, I learned from this class Piktochart, and I wanted to sort of allow my students to take control of their own learning and then also be able to monitor what they knew. And so this is a picture straight from my Google Classroom from this year. And I had students make their own review, whereas last year I gave them the review. This year they got to do it. This is an example of one of my students' reviews.
This is a perfect example of how my technology has transformed my teaching. In the past, as you saw earlier, I had students just do a review before an exam or review at the end of the 6 weeks. And after I learned Piktochart, I gave that resource to my students. So I flipped the classroom, which you'll see a little bit more about that later, and gave instructions about how to create the Piktochart to them through YouTube. And then they were able to create their own that reviewed the stuff we did at the beginning of the year, the school year. This was the end of the 6 weeks. And so just to give you some examples of some of my students' work, I would like to share with you one of my students and her Piktochart. So she reviewed everything that we did over the 6 weeks. And what's nice about each of them doing their own review is they can then share these with each other, and some of them will have information that others did not include, or the information presented may be easier to understand than what they had. So this student used the terms and definitions, she gave examples, and she gave quotes, which once I look at this, I can see she really does understand the rhetorical situation. She was able to put it in a creative, artistic style, and because of that, I think it's more likely that she'll go back and actually look over her review. This is far better than me giving them a handout and then they just fill in the questions. This is far better. It's original, it's their own, and I'm just so happy it completely transformed the way I review with my students.
So you can see I've already incorporated quite a few pieces of technology that I've learned this semester into my everyday classroom. And where will I go from here? Well, the technology I've learned, first of all, it engages my students. Second of all, it differentiates. It allows them to be excited about learning, which is more than engagement. They're willing to go beyond what I ask them to do. And they're creative, and I've been able to see a different side of my students' learning through technology. One of the things I incorporated is the blog. These are different pictures of blogs that my students have uploaded that were reflections of readings we had in class. I asked them to play with more than just text. So from here, I would like to incorporate more multimodal texts, and I have a long way to go, but I do think this is a start. This student uploaded a video, and then these found pictures. One of the things I learned that I didn't know before was about Creative Commons, and I shared with my students what that meant and asked them to find pictures, which this one right here I don't have to worry about because this is actually a picture of my student and his mother. So they have learned how to go beyond just word reflections and also make connections with images and even videos. In this case, this student has made a connection on a far deeper level because he found a way to connect his own life and childhood with the reading that we did, which, just so that you know, it was Mother Tongue by Amy Tan and Aria by Richard Rodriguez. We're studying the impact of language. And what better to discuss the impact of language than to incorporate other ways we communicate that go even beyond language. I know that I will organize my technology better because this semester I've learned it, and then as soon as I learned it, I wanted to use it. And so I was able to find different ways to incorporate it, such as reviewing, such as reflection, such as information, or utilizing information and then making sense of it. I know that that will continue because this year, even though I've been teaching for so long, has been one of the most exciting and engaging years I've ever had.